Hello basketball fans, welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving into the highly anticipated 2024 to 2025 NBA season. With exciting trades, rising stars, and fresh rivalries, this season promises to be one for the books. We'll break down the biggest storylines, highlight key matchups, and predict which teams are primed for a championship run. So grab your popcorn because it's time to jump into the action. Let's go.
In 15th place, the Brooklyn Nets, 16-66.
The Brooklyn Nets suffered their worst season last year since the 2017 to 2018 campaign. That season was a disaster that ended their 5 consecutive playoff appearances in a row and was also their first losing season for them since the 2019 to 2020 campaign. In the offseason, the Nets have officially entered a rebuilding phase when trading Mikal Bridges to the New York Knicks. Look for other veteran players on this roster to be on the trading block this February, and this season is shaping up to be a challenging one for fans. So, with low expectations going into the new season, I absolutely think that the Brooklyn Nets are going to be the worst overall team in the NBA this year.
14th place, the Washington Wizards, 17-65.
The Washington Wizards are coming off their worst season in franchise history last year, where they managed to finish with a record of 15 wins and 67 losses. At the moment, they haven't had a winning record since the 2017 to 2018 campaign, and at the same time, they have missed the playoffs for 3 straight seasons in a row. For the upcoming season, they will find themselves focusing on a rebuild, which will see the trades of the veteran core pieces at the trade deadline. The Eastern Conference is going to be tough, and the Wizards will face uphill battles in almost every matchup. Defensive lapses and inconsistent offensive execution could plague their season, making it difficult to rack up wins. However, fans can look forward to seeing how young players develop as they gain valuable experience on the court. By all means, I think that the Washington Wizards are going to have another long season this year and will be the second worst overall team.
13th place, the Charlotte Hornets, 22-60.
The Charlotte Hornets had another bad season last year, and it was their worst season since the 2012 to 2013 campaign. At the moment, the team hasn't had a winning record for 2 consecutive seasons in a row, and they have also not made the playoffs for 8 straight seasons, which is the longest streak of that kind in team history. As the new season approaches, they find themselves in a challenging position. Despite some promising young talent the team has, they are still working to build a competitive roster, with key players still developing and the coaching staff aiming to find the right chemistry. They will rely heavily on their emerging stars, but inconsistency and inexperience could plague their performance. While they possess moments of brilliance, especially on offense, defensive lapses and depth issues may hinder their ability to compete against stronger teams in the league. So my expectations are that the Charlotte Hornets have enough talent to compete for the play-in, but that's probably the most they can hope for on the new season.
12th place, the Detroit Pistons, 25-57.
The Detroit Pistons have been the worst overall team in the past 2 seasons, with last season being their worst campaign for them in team history. They have currently been in rebuilding mode since the 2020 to 2021 season, and at the moment they have missed the playoffs for 5 straight seasons in a row. At the moment, their last winning record came in the 2018 to 2019 campaign. As for the new season, they are gearing up for another challenging year. With a young roster still in the developmental phase, expectations are tempered as the team continues to rebuild. The team will be looking to their young stars to lead the charge, but with many still learning the ropes, the team may struggle against more established squads. Offensively, they might face difficulties finding a reliable scoring option, and defensively, the lack of cohesion could result in breakdowns that opponents will capitalize on. So my prediction for the new season is that the Detroit Pistons will be more improved, and they will still have a long way to go, but will be heading in the right direction.
11th place, the Chicago Bulls, 29-53.
The Chicago Bulls didn't have that great of a season last year, and they finished that campaign with another losing record for the second straight time in a row. At the moment, they haven't made the playoffs since the 2021 to 2022 campaign, and since they made the playoffs every year from 2008 to 2015, they have only made the playoffs twice in that period since then. As the new season approaches, they find themselves in a tough spot, looking to regain their footing in a competitive Eastern Conference. Despite having enough talent to win games, the team is still grappling with inconsistency and a lack of cohesion that could hinder their performance this year. However, they are still transitioning away from their previous veteran core, which the remaining pieces could be traded sometime this season. The team does have depth issues, and they may struggle to find a consistent rotation. While they have flashes of brilliance, particularly on the offensive end, defensive lapses and a tendency to falter in close games could prove detrimental. The pressure will be on their young players to step up, but without significant contributions from the bench, it may be difficult for the team to maintain competitiveness. So I suspect that the Chicago Bulls are not going to have a great season at all and could be the start of a new rebuild.
10th place, the Atlanta Hawks, 37-45.
The Atlanta Hawks have had 3 consecutive playoff appearances in a row, until last season where they missed the postseason for the first time since the 2019 to 2020 campaign. That also ended their 3 consecutive winning seasons in a row. The Hawks have a talented roster, but haven't been able to win consistently in recent years. Now, with a core led by Trae Young, the Hawks possess dynamic offensive capabilities. However, questions remain about their defensive consistency and overall depth. The team will look to integrate new players into their system while addressing last season's shortcomings. The chemistry among key players will be crucial, especially as they navigate a grueling schedule. Fans can expect an exciting style of play, but the Hawks will need to find ways to improve their defense and execute in high-pressure situations. So I suspect that the Hawks will be a playoff contender in the new season and should make the play-in.
9th place, the Toronto Raptors, 38-44.
The Toronto Raptors had a disaster of a season last year by finishing with their worst record since the early 2010s, and that's because of injuries, and that's all after having a winning record in the prior campaign. Currently, their last playoff appearance came in the 2021 to 2022 season. For the new season, the Raptors are eager to reclaim their status as a playoff contender threat in the Eastern Conference, and with a blend of young talent and seasoned players, the Raptors aim to find the right balance to enhance their playoff prospects. Scotty Barnes continues to emerge as a cornerstone for the franchise and will have a big season. And continuity with R.J. Barrett and Emmanuel Quickley will help the Raptors be a more competitive franchise this season and may improve throughout the year via trade. The Raptors will need to address their offensive flow and improve ball movement to maximize their potential. If they can solidify their chemistry and adapt to the challenges of the season, the Raptors could compete for a playoff spot on the new campaign.
8th place, the Miami Heat, 43-39.
The Miami Heat had a better regular season last year, but when it came to the playoffs, it was a disappointment after making the finals in the prior campaign. In the playoffs last season, they made it to the first round against the Boston Celtics. Unfortunately, they lost that series in 5 games. Last season, they had a record of 46 wins and 36 losses, which was their 5th straight winning record, and they also made the playoffs for a 5th time in a row. In those 5 straight playoff appearances, they have made 2 NBA Finals appearances in that time, losing both appearances. As the new season approaches, the Heat aim to build on their recent playoff run with a blend of experience and emerging talent. Led by Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo, the team boasts a strong defensive identity and a gritty work ethic. However, questions linger about depth and scoring consistency. The Heat will need to rely on their role players to step up, especially in clutch situations. If they can enhance their offensive flow and maintain health, Miami could make a strong push in the Eastern Conference, solidifying their status as contenders once again.
7th place, the Orlando Magic, 46-36.
The Orlando Magic had a great season last year, and they made the playoffs for the first time since the 2019 to 2020 campaign. In that playoff appearance, they made it to the first round against the Cleveland Cavaliers. Unfortunately, they lost that series in 7 games. As the new season approaches, Orlando has a talented young core, including rising stars like Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner. The team is looking to build on last season's progress. The addition of veteran leadership aims to bolster their competitiveness in a tough Eastern Conference. So I believe that the Orlando Magic are going to be on the rise this season and should be able to secure a playoff spot this year.
In 6th place, the Indiana Pacers, 47-35.
The Indiana Pacers had a fantastic season last year by having their deepest playoff run since the 2013 to 2014 campaign. In the playoffs last season, they played against the Boston Celtics in the Eastern Conference Finals. Unfortunately for them, they got swept in that series. That was also their first playoff appearance since the 2019 to 2020 campaign, and their final record during that season was 47 wins and 35 losses. At the moment, the team hasn't made consecutive postseason appearances since they made 5 in a row from 2015 to 2020. As the new season begins, they will have a dynamic backcourt featuring Tyrese Halliburton and a well-constructed roster. The Pacers look to enhance their offensive firepower while improving defensively. Coach Rick Carlisle's experience will be pivotal in maximizing their potential. So I suspect with playoff aspirations in sight, the Pacers could be an NBA Finals contender in the new season.
In 5th place, the Cleveland Cavaliers, 49-33.
The Cleveland Cavaliers had another great season last year by making the playoffs for a second consecutive campaign in a row. In the playoffs last season, they made it to the conference semifinals against the Boston Celtics. Unfortunately, they lost that series in 5 games. That was also their first back-to-back playoff appearances in a row since they made 4 NBA Finals from 2014 to 2018. Last season, the team dealt with significant injuries, and if the team can stay healthy this season, they will be among the best teams in the Eastern Conference. This roster has a really strong core led by Donovan Mitchell and with several other great players, and the team looks to enhance its playoff positioning. This season, my expectations for the Cleveland Cavaliers are that they will be an NBA Finals contender this year and will be a top team overall.
4th place, the Milwaukee Bucks, 50-32.
The Milwaukee Bucks had a disappointing season last year. Even though they made the playoffs, that's because they didn't go that far in the postseason when they were considered to be a championship contender. In the playoffs last season, they played against the Indiana Pacers in the first round. Unfortunately, they lost that series in 6 games. That was their second consecutive season not getting past the first round, and overall the team has made the playoffs for 8 straight seasons in a row. In that period, they have made only 1 NBA Finals appearance in the 2020 to 2021 season, and they won that appearance. Milwaukee has 2 of the league's best scorers, Giannis Antetokounmpo and Damian Lillard, and the roster's depth isn't that great. As the new season approaches, I suspect that Milwaukee will still be a very good team and could have a deep playoff run if things go right for them this year.
3rd place, the Philadelphia 76ers, 53-29.
The Philadelphia 76ers had a letdown of a season last year by not going that deep in the playoffs, but one bright spot is that they made the postseason for the 7th time in a row. In that playoff appearance, they played against the New York Knicks in the first round. Unfortunately, they lost that series in 6 games. That is the longest playoff streak for them since the mid-1970s to the mid-1980s. In those 7 straight postseason appearances, they have managed to get out of the first round on 5 occasions, but haven't been able to get past the conference semifinals in that period. With superstar Joel Embiid at the helm and a solid supporting cast, including Tyrese Maxey and new addition of Paul George, the team is focused on achieving postseason success. Under head coach Nick Nurse, the 76ers are expected to emphasize defense and ball movement, setting the stage for a compelling season as they pursue their championship dreams in the new season.
2nd place, the New York Knicks, 58-24.
The New York Knicks had a wonderful season last year by having their best campaign since the 2012 to 2013 campaign. They also made the playoffs in back-to-back seasons in a row, which hasn't happened to them since the early 2010s. In the playoffs last season, they played against the Indiana Pacers in the conference semifinals. Unfortunately, they lost that series in 7 games. New York this season will be looking to make their first 3 consecutive postseasons in a row. They weren't ready to reinvest in Julius Randle and had a significant hole at center, and with the addition of Karl Anthony Towns, who isn't a dominant defensive force, but he's one of the better offensive bigs in the league. So my prediction is that the New York Knicks are going to be a strong team this season and should be an NBA Finals contender this year.
First place, the Boston Celtics, 60-22.
The Boston Celtics had a wonderful season last year by winning the NBA Finals for the first time since the 2007 to 2008 campaign. In the NBA Finals, they played against the Dallas Mavericks and they won that series in 5 games. That was their 18th championship in team history, and now the Celtics stand alone on top of the NBA world by having the most championships. That was also their 4th NBA Finals appearance since the beginning of the century, and in those appearances they have won 2 of those 4 appearances. As the new season kicks off, Boston has one of the best rosters in the entire league, with the formidable trio of Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. So I believe that the Boston Celtics are going to have another wonderful season this year and should absolutely be the top contender to win the NBA Finals.
15th place, the Portland Trailblazers, 21-61.
The Portland Trailblazers are coming off their first season of rebuilding mode, where they had their worst overall campaign since the 2005 to 2006 season. Even though their rebuilding process got started last season, they have currently missed out on the postseason on the last 3 seasons in a row, with their last playoff appearance coming in the 2020 to 2021 campaign. During the regular season, they had a record of 21 wins and 61 losses, and that made them the 3rd worst team in the NBA. As for the new season, the Portland Trailblazers don't have that great of a roster, but with veterans like Jerami Grant, DeAndre Ayton, and Anthony Simons, the team has enough talent to compete alongside, with prospects Shaedon Sharpe, who's due for a big year, and Scoot Henderson. So I absolutely think that the Portland Trailblazers are going to improve in the new season, and won't show in the win column this year, but the team should be heading in the right direction for the future.
14th place, the Utah Jazz, 22-60.
The Utah Jazz weren't as good as expectations last season, and they missed out on the playoffs for a 2nd straight season in a row. Last season, their record was 31 wins and 51 losses, which was their first 50-game loss season since the 2013 to 2014 campaign, and also that was their 2nd consecutive losing season in a row. This young roster is led by star guard Lauri Markkanen, but the Jazz don't have enough support to win consistently at the moment. While the franchise could push for every win, resulting in a mediocre season and potentially losing a draft pick to the Thunder, expect Markkanen to be sidelined as the team fully embraces a rebuilding strategy. Now, going into their 3rd consecutive year of their current rebuild, I suspect that the Utah Jazz are going to have a very long season this year.
In 13th place, the San Antonio Spurs, 30-52.
The San Antonio Spurs had another bad season last year, and they won the same amount of games in consecutive seasons in a row. Their last 2 seasons under Greg Popovich as head coach has been the worst in his coaching career. At the moment, the Spurs haven't had a winning record or made a playoff appearance since the 2018 to 2019 campaign. As the new season kicks off, the Spurs have a future superstar in Victor Wembanyama, who is the best overall player on the team. With a mix of young talent and experienced players, the Spurs aim to rebuild while staying competitive in a tough Western Conference. Coach Greg Popovich's expertise will be crucial in developing their roster and establishing a cohesive team identity. So my prediction is that the San Antonio Spurs are on the right path to building a contender in the future, and this season they will be more competitive and will miss out on the playoffs.
12th place, the Memphis Grizzlies, 35-47.
The Memphis Grizzlies had a horrible disappointing season last year by missing the playoffs and by having a losing record. Just 2 seasons ago, the Grizzlies were among the best teams in the West. Ja Morant had off-court issues and injuries, and a slew of health issues derailed the franchise last season. By that happening last season, that ended their 3 consecutive playoff appearances in a row, and that also ended their streak of winning records in a row at 3. A rebound season is possible this year. With star guard Ja Morant leading the charge, the team will focus on restoring their defensive identity and improving consistency. However, there's a sense of unease surrounding the Memphis Grizzlies. Injuries persistently haunt the team, raising concerns about their stability. If any of the playoff contenders stumble, the Grizzlies appear to be the most at risk of falling out of contention. Their success hinges on staying healthy and finding consistency, making this season a pivotal one for the franchise. So I think that they will miss the playoffs this season.
11th place, the Los Angeles Clippers, 36-46.
The Los Angeles Clippers had a great season last year by making the playoffs in back-to-back seasons in a row. In the playoffs last season, they made it to the first round against the Dallas Mavericks. Unfortunately, they lost that series in 6 games. In their last 2 playoff appearances, the team has failed to move past the first round. In the offseason, the team let go of Paul George, and was it a mistake by allowing him to sign with the 76ers? It's possible, but LA opted not to reinvest in a pricey player who frequently underperformed in the playoffs. This roster is led by Kawhi Leonard, who is a really great player when healthy, but he's had issues with injuries, and if he's healthy for the new season, this team will be competitive. By all means, I think that the Los Angeles Clippers will finish the new season with a losing record and will miss the playoffs.
10th place, the Golden State Warriors, 42-40.
The Golden State Warriors had a good season, but unfortunately they missed out on the playoffs, and that ended their 2 consecutive playoff streak in a row. Golden State at the moment has had 4 consecutive winning campaigns in a row, and their record last season was 46 wins and 36 losses. With the core of Stephen Curry, Draymond Green still in place, and with the departure of Klay Thompson in a trade with Dallas, the team still has enough talent on the roster to be competitive. Betting against Steph Curry is a risky proposition. While the Warriors may not seem poised to compete at the highest level in the Western Conference, there's always the chance that Curry can carry his team through the play-in and into the NBA Finals. So I expect that the Golden State Warriors will be fighting for a playoff spot all season long this year.
9th place, the Houston Rockets, 43-39.
The Houston Rockets had a great season last year, even though they didn't make the playoffs. That's because they had their first winning record in 5 years. Their record last season was 41 wins and 41 losses, which was their best campaign for them since the 2019 to 2020 season. As for the new season, the team is bringing back a loaded young core that includes Alperen Şengün, Jabari Smith Jr., Jalen Green, Amen Thompson, and Cam Whitmore, and Houston has a legitimate Rookie of the Year contender in Reed Shepherd. This young roster is going to be even better with another year under their belt, but the question of their futures of Jalen Green and Alperen Şengün are uncertain, as they can either extend their contracts before the season or re-sign in July. Will Houston choose to reinvest or let one or both depart? These decisions could set the stage for a blockbuster move before the trade deadline and will significantly impact the team's direction. So I think that the Houston Rockets could be a top 10 team if things go right for them this season.
8th place, the Los Angeles Lakers, 45-37.
The Los Angeles Lakers had a good season last year by making the playoffs for a second time in a row, and in the last 5 seasons they have made the playoffs 4 times in that period. In the playoffs last season, they played against the Denver Nuggets in the first round. Unfortunately, they lost that series in 5 games. In the regular season, they had a record of 47 wins and 35 losses. And since LeBron James joined the Lakers in the 2018 to 2019 campaign, the team has had 4 winning seasons in the last 5 years. With LeBron James and Anthony Davis still leading the charge, the only meaningful additions to the team are late first-round pick Dalton Knecht, and perhaps the most discussed incoming second-round pick of all time, Bronny James. The Lakers might need to adjust their roster through trades before the deadline to gear up for a serious playoff run. The Denver Nuggets have been their main obstacle for the past 2 years, and avoiding them could be crucial for determining the length of the Lakers' postseason. So I suspect that the Los Angeles Lakers are going to be a competitive team, and will compete for a playoff spot this season.
7th place, the Phoenix Suns, 46-36.
The Phoenix Suns had a better season last year compared to the previous campaign, but at the same time it was considered to be a disappointment. In the playoffs last season, they made it to the first round against the Minnesota Timberwolves. Unfortunately, they got swept in that series, even though they were considered to be a finals contender. At the moment, the Suns have currently made the playoffs for 4 consecutive seasons in a row, and last season their record was 49 wins and 33 losses. This roster is led by superstars Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, and Bradley Beal, and if this trio is healthier than last season, this team will be even better this year. So I suspect that the Phoenix Suns are going to battle for a playoff spot this season and could have a deep playoff run if things go right for them.
6th place, the Sacramento Kings, 48-34.
The Sacramento Kings had a disappointing season last year by not making the playoffs, even though they had a winning record. Currently, the Kings haven't been able to make back-to-back playoff appearances in a row since the late 1990s to mid-2000s. One bright side of last season was that they had their 2nd consecutive winning season in a row, which hasn't happened to them since the mid-2000s. The Kings could see improvements with DeMar DeRozan, but his fit on the team raises some concerns. His lack of three-point shooting might not mesh well with the offensive styles of Domantas Sabonis and De'Aaron Fox. Additionally, the Kings need to bolster their defense, and DeRozan may not address that issue. Their division, featuring the Warriors, Clippers, Lakers, and Suns, boasts 5 teams that can realistically aim for the playoffs or at least contend for a spot. Earning a 50-win season will be a tough challenge to come by. So my prediction is that the Sacramento Kings are going to have another great season and will contend for a playoff spot this year.
5th place, the Denver Nuggets, 49-33.
The Denver Nuggets had their best overall regular season in team history last year since they joined the NBA in the 1976 to 1977 season. In the playoffs last season, they played against the Minnesota Timberwolves in the conference semifinals. Unfortunately, they lost that series in 7 games. Denver has had a winning record in every season for 7 consecutive campaigns in a row and has also made the playoffs for 6 straight seasons in a row at the same time. The Nuggets have a pretty strong roster led by MVP Nikola Jokic, and with Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr. providing essential support, I wouldn't be surprised if Nikola Jokic wins another MVP award this year. So I suspect that the Denver Nuggets are going to be an NBA Finals contender in the new season.
4th place, the New Orleans Pelicans, 50-32.
The New Orleans Pelicans had a wonderful season last year by making the playoffs and by having one of the best campaigns in team history. In the playoffs last season, they made it to the first round against the Oklahoma City Thunder. Unfortunately, they got swept in that series. New Orleans has had 2 consecutive winning seasons in a row, and that hasn't happened to them since the late 2000s, but currently the team has never been able to have 3 consecutive winning seasons in a row in franchise history. During the offseason, they tackled their biggest need this summer by trading for DeJounte Murray, adding a reliable 2-way ball-handling guard to their lineup. The success of the season now hinges on the health of Zion Williamson. If he can remain healthy throughout the season, New Orleans could contend for home court advantage in the first round of the playoffs. So I suspect that the New Orleans Pelicans will be a pretty great team this season and will be a playoff contender this year.
3rd place, the Dallas Mavericks, 52-30.
The Dallas Mavericks had a great bounce-back season last year by making the NBA Finals, and that's after missing the playoffs and having a losing record in the previous campaign. In the NBA Finals last season, they played against the Boston Celtics. Unfortunately, they lost that series in 5 games. That was their 3rd ever NBA Finals appearance in team history, and that was their first one since they won the Finals in the 2010 to 2011 campaign. Their roster is going to be very talented with superstar Luka Doncic leading the charge, and he's one of the best scorers of all time, ranking 3rd in NBA history for career points per game. Now, with the addition of Klay Thompson to the team, they could exceed last year's win total. So I absolutely think that the Dallas Mavericks are going to make a playoff spot this season and should be an NBA Finals contender this year.
2nd place, the Minnesota Timberwolves, 54-28.
The Minnesota Timberwolves had their 2nd best ever season in franchise history last year, and they made the playoffs for a third time in a row. In the playoffs, they played against the Dallas Mavericks in the Western Conference Finals. Unfortunately, they lost that series in 5 games. That was their biggest playoff run in a season for them since the 2003 to 2004 campaign, and that was also their second time ever making that deep into the playoffs. In the offseason, the Timberwolves made a bold move by trading an all-star after their conference finals run, influenced heavily by economic factors in the Karl Anthony Towns deal with the New York Knicks. While Julius Randle may not provide floor spacing alongside Rudy Gobert, he brings a different level of physicality to the roster. Even though they don't have Karl Anthony Towns anymore on the team, this roster is still going to be very good this year. This season, the Minnesota Timberwolves are expected to be a serious NBA Finals contender this year, and I absolutely believe in that.
First place, the Oklahoma City Thunder, 57-25.
The Oklahoma City Thunder had a fantastic season last year by ending their playoff drought, and that campaign was their first 50-win season since the 2015-2016 campaign. In the playoffs last season, they played against the Dallas Mavericks in the conference semifinals. Unfortunately, they lost that series in 6 games. This year, the team will be looking to make their first NBA Finals since the 2011 to 2012 campaign. Oklahoma City has a promising young roster led by Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Chet Holmgren, and they also added Alex Caruso and Isaiah Hartenstein, who could help catapult this team into a true contender. A lack of experience at that level might be the biggest challenge for the Thunder, but they are the strongest team on paper in the West and could pose a serious threat to the top teams in the East come June. By all means, I think that the Oklahoma City Thunder are going to be the best team from the Western Conference this season and should be an NBA Finals contender this year.
So those are my NBA standings and record predictions. Who do you think will be the best team in the NBA this season? Let me know down in the comments section. So if you're new, please consider subscribing and also hit that notification bell. And if you love sports, this is definitely the place for you. And also share this video with more sports fans. For more NBA videos, please click up here. And thank you so much for watching. This is Sports with Gary. I'll see you guys all next time. Just keep loving sports.